As our summit unfolds, we are so delighted to have a versatile individual who not only shapes Awardco's content landscape, but also takes center stage in the world of theater. Please join me in welcoming Bronson Dameron, the Director of Content at Awardco, and our guide for the upcoming panel featuring esteemed clients Adobe, Beckman Coulter Diagnostics, Children's Nebraska, and L3 Harris.
Intro, thank you. My name is Bronson. I'll be leading this panel. I'm the Director of Content, and I've been here for 4.5 years. So when I joined Awardco, there were less than 40 people employed here, and now there are over 400. So I've seen a lot of growth. It's really exciting, and I'm very excited to be here. So if you could join me in helping welcome our panelists, Abby, Madeline, Louisa, and Carrie. If you want to just come on up. Thank you. Great. Thank you for coming. Have a seat. So this panel is going to be really conversational. So all of our experts here, they have a lot of great experience that we can draw from, and we're going to talk about your success and what you've seen and all of the great things that you've been doing in your organizations. But then out here as well, as you have questions, please feel free to ask them. I'll run around with the mic and we can ask questions, make this really conversational. What we want to have happen is, as you hear about the success of these wonderful organizations and of these wonderful individuals, ask questions. Be like, how did you do that? Or what about this? And we can continue the conversation and make it hopefully very fulfilling for everyone. So just by way of introduction, Louisa, if you could introduce us, we could go and introduce each one of you, where you're, what organization you're from, and something interesting about yourself.
Oh, wow, no pressure. Hi, my name is Louisa. I am from Adobe, based out of Denver. I guess somewhat unique here is I'm not part of any HR organization, so that's a bit different. Also, I speak 6 languages.
You speak 6 languages? Well, what languages do you speak?
Greek, French, English. I don't even remember anymore.
Swedish.
Some Spanish and some
My
Italian.
goodness, what's your original language?
Greek.
Greek. Mm-hmm. That is really interesting. Cool, well thank you for being here. It's a pleasure.
Thanks for having me.
Madeline.
Hi, my name is Madeline Quinn. I work at Children's Nebraska in Omaha, Nebraska. I would say something interesting and how this has shaped our recognition platform is that I'm a nurse, a pediatric intensive care unit nurse for the past 9 years. And so before I switched into my role on the well-being team at Children's, I had the experience of being bedside and so could really understand how recognition can impact our doctors and nurses.
That's amazing. Thank you for sharing that. I'm sure a lot of really interesting things we can hear about there. Abby, if you wouldn't mind introducing yourself.
Hello, everyone. I'm Abby Jones from L3 Harris. I guess something interesting about me is that my background is actually in social sciences. So I have a master's in industrial organizational psychology with a background in multivariate statistics that have really helped shape a lot of our data analytics to really drive our recognition programs.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Carrie.
Hi, my name's Carrie Rogers. I am from Beckman Coulter. We are based in Brea, California. We implemented Awardco in April. And an interesting fact is I'm a crazy cat lady. My cats show up on my Zoom calls all the time.
How many cats do you have?
I have 3.
3 cats.
Yeah.
Any other cat lovers out there? Yeah, right. I myself am a cat lover. I really enjoy cats. Like dogs too. They're not mutually exclusive, right? But yeah, thank you very much. Thank you for being here. So as we get into this, feel free to be thinking about questions and what you want to ask. But let's start, and we want to make it so everybody has a chance to answer. But how long have you been with Awardco, and what was your solution like for recognition before you came to Awardco? You don't have to name names if you had a previous vendor. We don't want to know too much about that. But what was it like before, and how long have you been with Awardco?
Okay, I started working with Awardco in July of last year, went live in September. And before, it's actually the same as now. We use different vendors for different parts of our recognition across the company, but Awardco is kind of supplemental to really address the ad hoc recognition, which was missing.
Okay, and Adobe, as you have organizations globally, right? Mm-hmm. So is Awardco used throughout that? Or?
It is.
Oh,
yeah, we have a global implementation.
That's incredible. How hard was it to implement globally?
Not as hard as you think until we
Okay.
started talking payroll.
Well, it sounds like we have some people out here that can relate with that, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And what was most difficult about that aspect of it?
Payroll, I think each country has its own rules and regulations and formats, and I see everyone nodding. I think you know what I'm talking about. It's just really difficult to ensure that you hit everything correctly because you just don't want to make any mistakes in that field.
What were some of the successes, or how did you make that successful? Because it's a challenging thing to implement globally with payroll.
Lots of blood, sweat, and tears, and conforming to different templates and processes, and trying to document that and really abide by our internal requirements. I'll be honest, it's still a pain point.
It's still a pain point. Did it take a longer time than you anticipated when you were implementing?
No, honestly, we did an amazing job thanks to our implementation team, and I'm going to shout out Ashlyn here. Because they were fantastic, and on any roadblocks that we experienced were internal, and I'm sure we're going to talk about caveats in the future. I can tell you more about that, but the Awardco team were just phenomenal at working with our timeline. I think we got it done in about a month flat.
Wow.
Which, if you knew how slowly anything moves in my company, it's pretty much an achievement.
No, I have a note here. You have about 30,000 employees. Is that right? That's a lot, and to do it in a month.
But to be fair, one thing that's interesting is we don't have Awardco implemented across all of Adobe. It's a departmental implementation.
Oh yeah, awesome. Still very challenging.
It's a couple of thousand employees.
Just a couple thousand, no big deal. Okay, awesome. Thank you so much. Madeline, how long has Children's Nebraska been with Awardco, and what was your experience like moving from a previous vendor or solution to what you're doing now?
Yeah, so we launched on February 27th, so I also need to shout out Shanae because she was an incredible implementation manager, and she really helped to really personalize for us. One thing that I encourage with people who are implementing is try to think of things that are fun. Like, for example, I took videos across the hospital of things that are kind of inside jokes everywhere, and Shanae helped make them into GIFs, and then we added it to our content library. So when people signed in the first day, there was a picture of a helicopter taking off saying you saved the day, stuff like that. So we could really make it really unique to our hospital. And I would say previously what we did was we gave everyone Children's Hospital water bottles and sweatshirts, and that was what all of our gifts were for all of our gratitude for our employees. And so this was a common thing I was hearing from employees, that they were tired of having blankets and water bottles and things like that. And we know that people experience value and love in so many different ways. And so when we benchmarked different companies and presented it to the employees, the vast award network was really what caused our employees to want to choose Awardco, because they could really choose what was meaningful to them.
Do you think anybody still chooses blankets and water bottles?
No, not at all.
Yeah, now that they have a lot more variety,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, thank you for that.
Yeah.
Abby, what about yourself? How long have you been with Awardco, and what was your experience like before?
So I guess what prompted our transition to Awardco was the big merger between L3 and Harris, which now is L3 Harris.
When did that merger happen?
2019, I think, is when we closed. But so we transitioned to Awardco at the end of 2019 and really opened it up to enterprise-wide 2020. And I think, so I wasn't actually involved in the initial implementation of it. I came on board about a year afterwards. So I may not have the best insight there, but I do know that our L3 side of things were very decentralized. Everything was very local. It was very, here's a gift card on your lunch break. But then we did have the Harris side. It was a little bit smaller than L3, but they did use a similar program, not similar, Awardco is very different, but you know what I mean. We had a centralized recognition program that was very catalog based, and that was really the drive to go to Awardco, was the employee experience that you guys could offer us.
Okay, and was the impetus to do that the merger that you needed to, as far as you know, was it to make so you could have a cohesive culture and things like that?
Absolutely, yep. We've kind of taken on a more centralized view of things, especially with our recognition program and our total rewards strategy. And Awardco allowed us to do that with how many employees that we have and how streamlined it is.
How many employees does L3 have?
About 50,000.
L3 Harris, sorry.
Yeah. Yes.
50,000.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you so much. And Carrie, how long has your organization been with Awardco, and what was your experience like?
We went live on April 1st. We had been with our previous vendor for 25 years. The straw that broke the camel's back was the $50 gift card for Japan that cost $150 to ship to Japan. So we really were doing this for 100% cost savings reasons. We had identified that we could save around $800,000. That has been totally realized and saved, but the biggest benefit is we are globally in 45 different countries, and with our previous vendor, every item was a US-based company, product, etc., that was shipped to their country. The fact that our associates are able to get products that they want in their local geography is huge and has been a huge selling point for us.
That's incredible. $150 to send a $50 gift card? That's crazy. Anyone else struggle with a lot of global redemptions or recognition before you went to Awardco? Yeah, and maybe even still now, right? Global recognition is hard, and that's one thing we want to talk about, but thank you all for that. So as we've talked about that, are there any initial questions that you want to ask as you've heard some of these experiences? If not, we'll dive right in, but I want to open it up if there are any questions as you've heard about the implementation. Okay, no worries. So I want to focus a little bit on one program that I've heard about Children's Nebraska, the Sunshine Program. And now I remember hearing about that. We talked about that several months ago in our Awardco Culture Quarterly. Tell us a little bit about that, Madeline, about setting that up and the benefit that that brought to your organizations, and maybe some of the difficulties you faced as you were setting that up.
Yeah, so we call our recognition platform at Children's the Sunshine Hub. Our logo looks like a little sun. I would never tell marketing it's a sun because it's not. So we felt like it was a way that we wanted to brighten someone's day, spread a little sunshine. So we used that theme, and I would suggest that for those who are implementing to have sort of maybe a concept or a theme that you can run with to help make implementation a little more fun. So we had, sunshine cookies. I would go around to each department because we have a lot of people that are facing patients and not in front of a computer outside of charting. And so I would go personally with tip sheets and bring jars of sunshine with yellow candies, things like that to kind of like spread this kind of concept or this idea to help make it sticky. So our peer-to-peer program and our leader to direct report programs are both called Sunshine. And then we have other programs like outside of it, but we also call the platform Sunshine. So I would say that what I've appreciated the most is like the creativity options. And so an example of that was, I came from the PICU, so I took care of a lot of dying children, and that's really emotionally difficult. And in my role as a well-being person, I wanted to find a way of how we could combine recognition with well-being. So one program that came from a bedside nurse in the neonatal ICU, and then with me, we created this lavender program. And so lavender is like a national research-based thing for hospitals focusing on like a code lavender, so like emotional distress for the provider after a difficult situation. So we took that concept and we created a lavender program that certain nurses in each department have access to. And so when a patient passes away, they have access just to this own program, and they send them a private message that says like, we know you did everything you could. Here are resources to get emotional support. Here's resources to talk to someone about this traumatic experience, and it's a private recognition, so only they get it, and then how Awardco set up is their manager gets it. And so we really gave the ownership to those team members to really spread well-being and spread like emotional support after traumatic events, which I think is a beautiful application of how you can combine recognition with well-being. And then Paige, my amazing client success manager, helped me build into this platform like standardized messages that were still meaningful. So then the person doesn't have to think of a compassionate message when they're doing this every time. They can just literally copy and paste all these options based on the experience. And so it's really a compassionate message, but it's not all of that thought process to do that. So we just have that linked out in the program. They copy and paste. They can share a photo of all the resources that we have to offer for emotional support. And then grief doesn't usually happen right away. So because you have a feed where you can see all the recognitions you've received, like I can go back and say, hey, I was okay the first week, but a month down the road, I started having dreams about this and was really upset. So now I can go back in my feed and find those numbers to ask for help.
That's incredible. I think that one thing you brought up, we've been talking about this at Awardco for a little while, but recognition, we've been talking a lot about ROI in this organization or in this experience here about the ROI of recognition and how you can get the data, and that's very, very important. We want to make sure that everybody knows that, but recognition at its heart is about people, right? It's about improving the lives of your employees and the lives of your customers and about improving just the experience. And now that can be very fluffy, right? You can't often take that to a leader and say, this is what we want. And the leader might agree with it, but they need something a little bit more. So we're talking about getting leadership buy-in. I was speaking with Penn Entertainment. Where are my Penn people at? Yeah, right there. Yeah, just one for now. Earlier this morning about getting that leadership buy-in. Have the four of you experienced any difficulties either getting leadership buy-in from the top down or even, as we spoke about in the previous panel, manager buy-in to get this across the line? I'm very interested in that. And as you all have questions about that too, please feel free to ask that. But Louisa, did you have any trouble with that? Adobe's just
actually
got
no.
it together?
We had a VP that was really passionate about recognition as a whole. I'm a senior leader in my organization myself, so I was tapped to be the business owner of it. Okay, and my manager as well is super passionate about it. So I'm very lucky. I have a chain of 4 people, straight up to a C-level. That's this is great.
As far as we've experienced, that's incredibly rare to have that kind of
I know, I'm very lucky.
Yeah. So what was the thing that got recognition, to such a high level of importance? Was it just, we need this, or?
I think it's partly the culture and partly kind of identifying that, hey, we're doing employee surveys and our recognition score is not really as good as it should be. And then thinking we should be more purposeful about this. What can we use as a tool to help us drive that forward?
That's incredible. Anybody else struggle with leadership buy-in out there? Nobody? Really? Wow, you're all very amazing. That's great. Excellent. Well, thank you for that. That's wonderful. Abby, did you, as you've experienced this, any trouble with leadership buy-in in that?
Absolutely.
Sure. Okay. All right.
It's been difficult, sure. So thankfully, I will say, though, our business is segmented, and each of our segments have a president, and all of those presidents seem to be very on board with recognition. They consistently put out communications that talk about different initiatives that each segment is doing, and we are also trying to push for a performance-first culture and tie in our recognition program to that. So in an effort to push my leadership at the corporate level to get that to matter a little bit more, we have tied in our performance-first mindset by pushing other segments to do performance-first awards that are intended to recognize individuals that really go above and beyond with a performance-first mindset that have driven key business results for our organization.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's wonderful. And good. Harkens back to the data point, right? That a lot of times leaders do need those data points to take this further. Carrie, what about yourself? Any trouble with getting leadership buy-in?
I would say yes. We had a kind of plug and play. We took what we had in our old vendor, put it into the new vendor. So we are a huge culture of recognition. We do it because of engagement, but I don't know if it's almost like it's expected of us. So I don't know. We don't have to buy in very much because, hey, X dollars can be spent on recognition. As long as you keep doing that, we're good to go. But there has been some more excitement. Like we have added in award codes, which is a new program for this year, because we are trying to get we have a large hourly operations workforce that doesn't have access to computers. So we've started handing them award codes that they can use, scan on their phone, log it in, and that has been, it's very new, but it's also going to be, it's big from the little we've heard so far of on that spot. It's really exciting.
That's great. So you've heard a little bit about that, about award codes? Like people have said that they've been enjoying that and like.
Yeah, we printed them out. We gave them to managers in some test locations. They've started to hand them out. People are scanning them and it's getting some good traction.
That's great. That's one thing that we know that a lot of people struggle with is that offline recognition piece, because Awardco's a technology, right? You use it online or on your phone, but so many people aren't in front of a computer every day. And a lot of people are, but like if you're not, then you need another way to kind of touch into that recognition. So that's wonderful to hear. Thank you. And so, Madeline, going back to you, how did you get leadership buy-in for such programs as you've created?
Yeah, so we had two strategies. One was I sat down one-on-one as well with my manager, a VP, with every executive up to our CEO for an hour or more to teach them how to use the platform. So this was before launch, so we sat down, we showed them all the things. I really tried to think about in their mindset. You know, they might only have X amount of time to do something, so I really focused on using scheduled send. I focused on setting aside on your calendar one time a week to go look at the upcoming memory books and devote 30 minutes to that. And so I think using tactics to help reach people where they are and within their schedule, as well as like those leaders were all bought in, they understood, and then they could transfer it down. I'm proud to say that when we look at our departments who recognize the most, the second highest department is our VP executive team.
Wow.
And so I do wonder if that executive leadership training was really helpful with that. And then our second piece is before launch, we have, about 150 to 200 managers across the organization. And we had leadership training that were optional before we launched. And I maybe had like 20 to 30 attend in the 4 different sessions. But after we've launched, Paige and I have collaborated, and we've had them quarterly, and we teach about the new things like My Circle, et cetera. And we've had like 40 to 50 come, like double. And so I feel like that's been really helpful just to continue to explain the new updates, give time for questions, et cetera.
Yeah.
And so doing that has been a good best practice for leadership.
That's incredible. I'd love to ask all 4 of you, as you're talking to your leaders, what are some of the ways, like if you can't get that level of leadership buy-in, what are some of the ways you would suggest to get that, if you can't get that level where you're talking about having trainings and things like that? Are there any small ways that you've found useful for managers or for other leaders to buy into recognition to start doing it? Louisa, what do you think?
So, well, for starters, most of us do some sort of employee satisfaction survey, right?
Yeah.
I think that's an easy one. And if you don't, you can do anything from, a different platform to get a pulse on your organization and where they stand on recognition. And, 90% chance is, you'll find that score is lower than you want it to be. And that's something actionable that you can take to your leadership and say that. If you're already, working with Awardco and have that implemented, we sometimes see, so I'm big on reporting in, engagement by different group in the organization, different like manager or org. And we see huge discrepancies, right? We have, we've got one lady in our Noida office in India who's just knocking it out of the park. She's a senior director. She's just engaged. She's in there. She's recognizing. She's making it a part of a team. And then we've got a gentleman who's maybe, we're not going to like name him too much or give you too much information, but he could really be doing better with a small org of 26 people that could be recognizing more folks.
Sure.
But it's just, making people aware of that data and understanding, then correlating, hey, what kind of satisfaction surveys are you seeing out of that group versus the groups that are doing the engagement?
Yeah.
And also sharing that, the feedback that we get directly from employees, because, whether it's in these surveys, whether it's in meetings, people shout out Awardco in meetings. I don't know if you guys have that, where they're like, Awardco is great. It's the best decision you guys have made this year. Like, fact, this happened in a meeting like 2 weeks ago.
You've had that happen 2 weeks ago. That's great.
And I was like, oh, warm and fuzzy.
Yeah.
But it's taking this back and saying, look, there are people there that appreciate it. It's really easy to get that feedback from our teams. People are out there and they want to be vocal about how they're not being recognized enough. We heard yesterday how important recognition is, what a role it plays in engagement and in people's desire to stay within an organization, particularly now, like everyone's tightening their belts, right? I don't think everyone's out here like with $1 bajillion of hiring budget going, yeah, we're going to like triple in size this year, right? Yeah. Everyone's trying to make the most and ensure that their employees are happy and safe. And that just really creates that environment of psychological safety. So I think that's something that we can tie back
Yeah.
to what Awardco has to offer. And I know it's not, strictly speaking, a pure KPI, but, emotion is not a dirty word in business, right?
Emotion isn't a dirty.
It is not.
Write that down. That's important.
And I'm sure, I don't know if you guys have come across these leaders who are like, let's take the emotion out of it. Let's just put the numbers down. And I'm like, just go read the Harvard Business Review. Like, there's entire studies of why emotion is valuable. And that, that's what our employees look at. They're approaching this emotionally. They're not kind of going, oh, the bottom line here is not great, therefore I will leave the company. It's like, I like it here. I don't like it here. I feel like I belong. I feel like I don't belong. And that's what keeps them there.
Yeah.
So we also need to approach it that way.
Do you feel like recognition can help bridge that gap between maybe I'm not going to say lack of emotion, but a little bit less emotion at the higher up you get in leadership versus, where you're just a regular employee, quotes, that operates a little bit more on emotion? Can recognition help bridge that gap?
Absolutely. I think just kind of making it part of the culture and having particularly senior leaders. I don't think a lot of them, maybe it's been too long, maybe they don't remember what it's like being down there, but the difference it can make, a few words of encouragement from, say, a VP to someone who's an associate technical support engineer or something, just taking those frontline calls.
Yeah.
And if for them, it really is an interaction they wouldn't otherwise have, because in reality, they're not easily going to cross paths, particularly now, a lot of people are hybrid or remote or in different offices. You're not going to have that personal interaction, which will allow you to have that feedback and that moment. And Awardco creates this. In fact, our ad hoc recognition is called Moments That Matter because of that.
Yeah, that's wonderful. That reminds me of something that in Chester's presentation yesterday, where older individuals who tend to be in a lot higher levels of leadership.
Like 8% or something
8%.
versus 32%, I think it was for
they
the
didn't feel like they needed recognition as much, and therefore maybe in their minds are like, other people don't need it as much too. Have any of you experienced that? Abby, have you experienced something like that? Or with leadership, what are some ways that you've been able to kind of get people a little bit more involved?
Yeah, so there's I'm thankful because I think that the L3 Harris culture does recognize that recognition is important from the leadership level.
Yeah.
I think there's disagreement on the best way to do so, which is kind of the gap that we're experiencing. And one of kind of our struggles now is with our limited budget. And so we're really trying to leverage other ways to, increase recognition throughout the organization. And kind of show how it's important to our leadership team. For example, so we took a look at our non-monetary recognition and have seen about 70% of our employee population recognized, which is great, but only about, I think it was like closer to, how much was it? It was like 5,500 employees were actually recognizing out of 50,000, which is not great, right? So we're seeing a very engaged population, and so we're trying to take that data to our leadership and say, hey, let's try and engage other populations using non-monetary automated programs to make people aware of the platform and how easy it is to navigate and use, and hopefully just kind of trigger people to go into the platform and realize, oh, I can just send a quick boost award.
Yeah.
Really just trying to drive that non-monetary recognition. Culture of gratitude, I think, is kind of the best way to put it.
Yeah. It's a wonderful time of the year to be talking about gratitude as well, right?
And then on top of that, also aligning it to our corporate values, I think. Like I mentioned before, our performance first mindset has been a huge driver, and it connects with our leadership team very well because they're the ones driving those values, right? And so if we take that and run with it, it's going to get them on board and engaged with the program more.
Absolutely. If they see that it can, like, oh, these are the values we value.
This is a great way.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Absolutely.
Value-driven recognition is something we talk about a lot. And I'm sure that many of you have seen the same benefits out here as well. Now, Carrie, I'm wondering what you would suggest for a small incremental way to improve that leadership buy-in piece. So we've heard from all of our experts here. What's one way you found effective?
We are very big on peer-to-peer, so pulling in those leaders is difficult. I love all of the one-on-one conversations, like in meetings. We have, I want to say, more of an apathetic population of like prioritizing what is a priority. So
Okay.
like for this, it wouldn't be a priority. The one thing that we do is successful is what we have a manager cascade kit that happens every month, and it's 30 minutes, and different functions in HR pop on, and there's always a slide for managers, and then what do we want you to share with your associates? So every month we talk about something about the recognition. Managers, remember to go do this, and then remind your associates, and that is a way to continually keep it fresh in people's minds. So what the perfect place is, the managers come to this meeting, they listen to it for 30 minutes, then they go back, they take the deck, and they go through company information, HR stuff, benefits,
Yeah.
and tell it. So at least it's keeping it fresh in people's minds.
Absolutely. That brings up, I really appreciate you sharing that, because we do something similar to Awardco where we have a weekly meeting, all hands meeting, and we always have a moment of recognition. And usually Steve leads those meetings, and he will get up there and say, so-and-so, recognize so-and-so, and then we'll read it, and then we'll celebrate that person. That is a great way to keep recognition top of mind. Now, you don't have to do that in a company-wide meeting, like if you have thousands of employees, very difficult to do that. But you can do that in your own meetings, right, of your department, right? You can just keep recognition top of mind. So thank you very much for sharing that. Now, shifting gears here a little bit, I would love to hear some of the unique ways that you have seen Awardco used in your platform. Now, you don't have to be like crazy unique, but I just want to know what are some ways that you're using it. Some programs you've created, or a way that you're using it globally or with thousands of employees. I would love to hear a little bit more about that. And as we hear about that, think about some of the ways you are using Awardco to create different programs, and we'd love to talk about them. So think about that, and then we'll come out and we'll kind of have a little bit of a discussion. So yeah, Louisa, what are some unique ways? And if you need a minute, that's totally okay.
No, I don't know that we're very special in that sense, but
You're special, come on.
We have two long-running programs that are always on. So one is like ad hoc recognition, as we said, employees get a certain amount of points per quarter. And if you want to talk about scalability, that's an interesting one. But the other one is awards. So we have an internal award system. The nominations are done through Awardco, and then the winners are picked. In a
is that
committee.
Like is Employee of the Month, or
kind of, they're
different
more
kinds of things?
specific. Yeah, we
see,
have
okay.
various ones that
Yeah.
are for specific things. So we use tags actually to differentiate them. So people go into into the program and write up why they're nominating the person, pick the appropriate tag for the award they're nominating and doing this. We've also recently implemented a self-nomination mechanic through the Earn programs, in fact, for these same awards. So these are the long-standing ones. And then we do a lot of kind of more ad hoc things when interesting things come up. So for example, now it's Q4. So we've implemented this in a customer engineering, customer success organization. So it's kind of close, strong, kind of drive customer satisfaction, etc. So we're running a contest, right? It's like a CSAT contest for employees, and we're awarding that out through Awardco. And we've also done other little like ad hoc programs like this, but we're always looking for new fun ways. But I think you have the more interesting stuff.
I already talked about the Lavender program, obviously, which is one of a unique application. For hospitals or companies that have clients, we share patient experience comments, de-identified, obviously, to comply with HIPAA. But that's one of the first times that we've been able to share comments that came in from families actually back to the provider, and they're very meaningful, like you saved my child's life, and they never got to see that, which is sad. And so that's really beautiful. Other things that we've done, focusing like patient experience in the hospital sector is obviously another really big topic right now. So we have two other separate hospital experience programs besides just the patient experience. One is directed by our marketing team, and they look at Google reviews, and then they recognize everyone who got a 5-star Google review every week, and then they, once a quarter, give out a winner to one provider with the most impactful Google review, and then they go to that clinic or that department and they give them treats. So that's one way that marketing has tried to enhance patient experience. Another way is our emergency department in particular. Their medical director reviews any comment that comes in through the emergency department and does a similar thing where they give out points once a quarter to one of the physicians or advanced practice providers that created an exceptional emergency department experience. So those are some ways that different areas have taken it. We've also done some fun things like our PICU did a March Madness challenge, so they had brackets, and then whoever won March Madness, they got points every week based on their brackets. That was a fun way. Stole an idea from Awardco. We had a Spirit Week on our 75th anniversary, so we had a theme for recognition every day, and it was like recognize someone who saves the day, recognize someone who makes an impact. So lots of different kind of fun applications, and I love to see what our team members come up with. And every time Awardco's been able to help us deliver on these new ideas,
That's
which is fun.
wonderful. Thank you. So just in what both of you have said, there's so many different applications of Awardco, right? You can have nomination programs, you can have Spirit Week programs, so many different areas. Abby, what about yourself? What are some of the ways that you use Awardco?
Yeah, I wouldn't say that L3 Harris is on the forefront of the recognition space, but a couple things that we've done that I think are kind of unique is that we have brought in-house our ERG programs, our Employee Resource Group programs, as well as like a corporate, we call it our corporate launch program because we have a launch program, which is our points-based program, but basically it's our corporate initiatives program. And so we house those within Rise, our platform, and it allows so much customizability that we have been able to utilize it throughout the organization. So whether we wanted to do Engineering Week, or we've done Employee Appreciation Week, or things like that, we've done different initiatives through the program because it's so customizable. And then our ERGs, we have like an ERG council where they do different raffles and different events that they may do something offsite, and they, can recognize through the platform, and then the leadership, the chair from that specific ERG announces those leaders and those those winners, I should say.
That's really great. I'm sure it happens more than I think, but this is the first time I've heard of ERGs being wrapped into Awardco. That's really awesome.
Yeah.
We should take notes, right? Awardco should take notes about it. Carrie, what about yourself?
We have 5 standard programs, our service anniversaries for the milestone years. We do have a huge e-card thank you program, so it has no points attached to it. It's probably one of our biggest utilizers, and it's absolutely free. So that is a huge win for us. The other thing, we just put in a nomination program called the Mission Star, which is allowing associates throughout the organization to either nominate someone or nominate themselves and give an example of how they have met one of our life realizing potential star awards, and it gets shared with the organization on a quarterly basis.
When you say life realizing potential, what do you mean?
That is Beckman's kind of tagline with our company and stuff. So there's different ways that you can win as a team, or above and beyond, and so there's usually 5 of those a quarter. Yeah. So it's been a neat way for the communications and marketing department to gather it, versus we used to use like a Teams kind of like
a channel where you just
So we've formalized a lot of these things in a nice, easy way.
And now, are these events, are they work related? Can they be outside related? Because when I hear life event, or I'm reminded
Realizing life's potential.
Yeah, life's potential. Is that things outside of work, or is that in both?
It can be both.
Okay.
So because we are a healthcare company, there's a lot of times that people may have a personal health situation that happened with a family member, and that they can tie it back to either our company or using our equipment. And so in those kind of examples, it can be work related, it can be personal.
Yeah, that's wonderful. I've heard of one organization who I don't think uses Awardco. My wife used to work for them, but they would have something like that, and it was in a Yammer channel. So like they would be like, hey, check this out, I did this awesome thing, and that's good too. That can work as well. But if you can wrap that into Awardco, how it's all under one umbrella. You don't need to have 5 million Yammer channels or Slack channels or Teams channels, whatever it might be. Thank you. This is really interesting hearing how you all use Awardco. Now, I would love to hear how other programs that you've created. Yeah, please, I'll bring the mic over and we can continue the conversation. So if you could tell us your name and what organization you're from.
Yeah, my name's Bridget. I'm with Pilot Flying J. Similar to kind of like the stuff you're talking about, we had a program that we ran. It was back in like August, and we called it Fill Your Tank Challenge. So it was hosted by our well-being team. And basically you kind of like submitted your kind of like what filled your tank that season or that month. And you got to submit like a picture, and we prompted them with questions for like how that like impacted them and helped with like their well-being in general. So that was a really great program. And then out of that, they kind of like selected some of the best out of them, or the ones that like really like fit the nature of the challenge. So that was one we did that seemed to be received very favorably, and they've actually started planning for like additional ones at different points in the year. So that worked for us.
Did you have one as well? Yeah, sure.
That's okay. Kelly, also with Pilot Flying J. I'm going to go back to one of the previous topics. Another way we like increase leader engagement is a little friendly competition. So like publishing rates by executive or by department of utilization or budget utilization increases because they want to see their name on the leaderboard, so to speak. And then working within limited budgets, we use the non-monetary, but then maybe we'll enter them into a contest for like lunch with the founder, or there becomes some kind of monetary or something valuable to it, but it's not like points only. So we've kind of gotten creative sometimes with things like that. Or you take all the department's non-monetary submissions and you enter them into a drawing or things like that, to where you can, if you don't have a big budget, you can still get the utilization and kind of stretch it further.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Thank you very much for sharing that. We're doing a customer, I hope it's okay I'm saying this, we're doing a customer story with Pilot Flying J, and it's really interesting to see how everyone's using these programs. So thank you very much for that. Anyone else? Yeah, we'll go right here.
Hi, I'm Karen with Savage. We are actually going to launch in January, but we, prior to Awardco, had a wellness option called WellRight, which you may or may not have heard of, but our benefits team had milestones that team members had to hit from a health standpoint. So go to a doctor, go do a wellness exam, do a dental visit, a vision visit, that sort of thing. And when you, it's honestly on the honor system, but if you check that you did the thing prior to Awardco, they just kind of gave you a $150 Amazon card, or you could choose like between Amazon and Home Depot, but there were like 3 or 4 options. And so we were like, hey, benefits team, help us get Awardco. So this is what we think we can do for you. So we were able to eliminate a vendor, which was great, and then really broaden the offering to our team members for choice when they choose to live more healthy.
That's great. 2 birds with 1 stone, right? Yeah. So we have wellness programs, we have leaderboard programs, and utilizing budgets. Anyone else have a way that you're using Awardco that you'd like to share, or a comment on some of our expert panelists, how they're using Awardco? Anybody else? Oh, yeah. Here, we'll walk over here.
I have a program that I'm working with Jordan on that we're going to be rolling out. We're in the middle of. It's pretty complex as far as with our drivers. We use Workday, and so they have a gift card program that's in place right now that's really a high volume of thousands and thousands of gift cards that are given out, where a manager can go in and say, hey, I want to order 100 gift cards to give out. The problem with that is there's no check and balance in place, and it involves one person on the procurement team that's having to manually enter these. So with Awardco, what's going to happen is, which will be super nice, is there'll be a check and balance in place for it. Of course, we are very complex on everything that we do. So there's a big approval process on the back end, and that's what Awardco is working on right now. So by end of quarter 2, we'll have this program rolled out where anybody can go in and order these. It will be points instead of just gift cards, which will be nice. So somebody may not want a physical gift card and they may want to use it on Amazon. They'll be able to do that. So I'm super excited about this rolling out in quarter 2 that we're in the process of working with Awardco on right now.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
I actually have a question. I think I heard yesterday JP Morgan Chase does this, and I think L3 Harris, you said you did this. Employee Appreciation Week. How do you go about that? How do you communicate it? How does Awardco help you implement it? And what kind of data are you seeing as far as utilization of the platform with that?
So it kind of depends on, we really rely on our businesses to communicate it. It starts at the top, and we have created a specific program for Employee Appreciation Week, and we are We push through it in our internal intranet communications, but we really do rely on our segment leaders to further, flow down that information. But we do see a significant spike, comparatively speaking, and it is completely non-monetary, which is, we've only heard good things about it, which is surprising considering the reliance on budget that we have in our culture. So.
That's great. Thank you very much. Thank you for that question. Did you have any follow-up questions, anything like that? All right. Any other questions before we begin to wrap this up a little bit? Okay, thank you. So as a final question to our expert panelists, what is or are some of the biggest challenges you're facing that you are trying to overcome with Awardco, and how are you doing that? Go ahead, Louisa.
Ironically, I think our biggest challenges came before we started with Awardco. And that's, as I said, nothing to do with the Awardco team, who are amazing, but that was our internal hurdles. And that would be my advice to anyone that's, part of a bigger, slower, bureaucratic company that is thinking of implementing this. If you haven't onboarded a vendor before in particular, you might have a lot of things to think about. We had to present this in front of a software committee with competitor data and kind of prove. Interestingly, our leaders were like, this is great, just do it. And then, it was 2 months of fighting for it.
Sure.
And then it was data privacy issues, payroll issues, branding issues. You have no idea how much stuff is out there that you might need to, think about. So make sure you have all of that. And those were our biggest hurdles. And our continuing pain points, I'd say, are payroll, which, thankfully my colleague handles, and I'm really grateful for that. I love her. She's not here, but shout out to Jen. But the other one is reporting for us. And I've worked closely with your product team, and they've been super responsive, and I'm very excited about some of the things that are coming down the line that were presented yesterday and that I saw. So I think definitely moving in the right direction. Yeah. But it's, you need to know what you want data-wise from the platform so that you can input the right things into the platform to get that. And by that, I mean make sure your user file has the right fields so that you can report. For me, it was a hierarchy problem, right? I'm really big, like you, we report on utilization by leader. I find that that's really motivating because no one wants to be called out. But getting that data, it implied that we put in hierarchical data from a specific field from Workday, which we use.
Yeah. And
that we didn't know that at the beginning, so we only added that a bit later, and that means that I don't have that data for the first 6 months because it only applies after you put it. So had I realized this prior to implementation, that would have been helpful. And then, creating that reporting so that it suits your needs. I think I was like, okay, cool. Well, it has pretty good reporting. I'll get in there, but I wish I'd spent a little bit more time figuring it out. And I think, thankfully, Awardco now is helping also with the new stuff that's in place to get us there. But that's probably one of the biggest hurdles.
Yeah, thank you for that. That is a huge initiative for us here at Awardco, is to make that easier for you. So thank you. Madeline, what about yourself?
I would say our two biggest challenges, one, I and Awardco have no control over it, but it's tax. That is what employee team members get frustrated about, is getting taxed on when they do a good job or the terms they use. But we can't change IRS rules, and we need to comply with them. So I would say if you're still implementing, we had taxation questions in our leader training, we had them in our FAQ page, all of these things, but it still wasn't at the forefront. And upon retrospection, my leader and I said, I don't know if I still would have led with tax, because that could have taken some negativity from the beginning rather than just the positive. So I don't know if I have a solution, but that's something just to think about when you're implementing, is employees' frustrations about taxation, which can't really be changed. And then two, the other piece is related to workers that aren't in front of a computer all day, whether they're doing patient care or they're working in the kitchen or cleaning the patient rooms. And so just ensuring with their leaders that we're teaching about the Progressive app and other things like that. So that's kind of our two biggest challenges that I think really involves around just one-on-one communication with that employee. So
that's great. Thank you, Madeline. Abby, what about you?
Yeah, for L3 Harris, I mean, we've been with Awardco for a while, and I think that we were kind of in the trenches together because when we first started, you guys were kind of still in startup mode, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of our initiatives were as a result of our expectations from our old vendor and things that we've had in the past that you guys didn't offer, and maybe you do now, maybe you don't. But I think managing those expectations has been one of the most difficult things for us in terms of change management. And I would say probably just emphasizing clear communication between both L3 Harris and Awardco, whether that be our employees or our team and the Awardco, like our client success manager and the dev team. And then I think that's still kind of a little bit of a pain point for us, trying to figure out how to manage those our expectations for you guys and you understanding what we're expecting from you overall. So I think that was kind of our biggest struggle. And then from the platform side of things, insight, being able to narrow down into different business areas. So we have 5,000 HR employees, and they all handle and help out with different business groups, and they have to be able to narrow down to their areas. And with the new roles and permissions, that has helped a lot, but we're still seeing struggles with our dashboard, for example. They're not able to go in and say, oh, well, you know, this one manager has 15 pending awards for 30 days. What is going on? They can't do that, not easily. They'd have to pull a report, and it's and one of those things where you have to train those people. You have to train your HR population, but it's a difficult thing to do when we have internal Tableau dashboards that can do that for us. We can't do that straight from the platform.
Yeah,
So.
thank you for sharing that. And Carrie, to kind of wrap us up here, what are some of the challenges that you are overcoming using Awardco?
You know, I'm going to kind of jump off from there. Keep it simple. I mean, we have a habit of over-engineering things, and our previous vendor, they had a bit more functionality, but it was functionality that would take 3 to 6 months for them to implement. By us keeping it simple, we were able to be much more nimble. We were able to get through it. And a lot of times I kept saying, you guys, we're saving $800,000. So we're not expecting this to do the exact same thing. We have to be different. And then my biggest challenge is with our managers. I looked at our Awardco the other day, and there's 495 managers that are pending approval. And I'm like, the fact that, you know, just trying to get managers to get into the system more. It's not a challenge. I know poor Jordan, I'm always like, Jordan, what else can we be doing, you know? But just getting folks in the system to use it.
Yeah, thank you all so much. So finally, to wrap things up, in 1 to 5 words, how would you describe your experience using Awardco?
Oh, wow.
1 to 5, I know that's a lot, but just like a couple words.
I say this a few times, and Kate, who's not here, is probably likes it the best, but because of my function not being anywhere near HR or rewards or anything, I often say, this isn't my day job, it's my passion project.
Love that.
So that's my experience.
That's great. Thank you so much, Louisa. Yeah, Madeline.
I'm not gonna stick with 1 to 5.
Okay,
but
that's all right. That's all right. It doesn't have to be 1 to 5.
I would just say, like, think about psychology. I love research, so there's a principle called the Lasada principle that you need 2.7 times more positive to outweigh the negative comment that's coming into your life. And we're constantly receiving a stream of negative in the media and the news. And so this is really a positive, and so by enhancing this, you might actually change the psychology and brain function of some of the team members at your organization.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Abby?
Yeah, our experience has been overwhelmingly positive, especially from our employee side of things, and that's really where we're seeing the most impact, which is what we want.
Yeah, that's great. Thank you. And Carrie?
It's been amazing. I know that it's tough to be in HR because it feels like most of the time all we hear about are the complaints. You don't get all the positives. But we have gotten so many positive emails that, hey, this is a great new system. We like it. There's so much more options. And we don't get that.
Yeah.
We don't get it in HR. You only get complaints. You don't get the positives. So to get that has been huge.
That's wonderful. Thank you. Thank you all so much for your expertise and for sharing your time with us. Let's give a hand to our panel as we wrap this up. Thank you. Go ahead and get down. Thank you so much.